It's the start of 2026, guys, and you know what that means. If you guessed New Year's resolutions, you would be 100% correct. This is the time of the year where we all endeavour to be the best person of ourselves, put our best foot forward, achieve all of those dreams. But did you know that 88% of people who set themselves a New Year's resolution will not achieve that goal? 88%. We're talking almost 90% of people here. That is a crazy statistic to me. And I have some ideas on why only 12% can actually achieve those goals. So hang around. I'm going to talk you through some easy strategies on how to make your New Year's resolution not just something you talk about, but something that you actually achieve. So, welcome back to the Akira-Bella podcast. I am your host, Amanda, and today I am going to be talking you through easy ways to set your goals, because at the end of the day, a New Year's resolution is nothing more than the intention to set a goal. Now, what does that mean? Well, a resolution is where you have decided to go ahead and change something about yourself or your life or your situation that you either do not like or you do not have or you would like to do. It is not enough to think about these things, and I feel like this is the perfect way to start with where the failure begins. Because if this is where you usually get up to with your New Year's resolutions, you think about them, you form the idea in your head, you have your idea set on what you want to do, that is fantastic. That is not where the success comes from. You've all heard it's always about the journey and not the destination. Well, in this case, both can be true. We definitely want to get to the destination. We already know what we want to do. The problem lies in how do we get there. And this is where the journey is incredibly important, because if you do not understand that the journey is absolutely critical to get to your goal and to get to your resolution, you ultimately will fail. And don't be scared. Failure is not a bad thing. It really, truly is not. We do live in a time where we're just not supposed to be imperfect. But that is crazy. We can strive for perfection, but even those people who we would perceive to have perfection probably have room to grow. We usually always have room to grow. I have not come across one person or one situation yet where there isn't room to grow. Try telling my year 6 self that, because she didn't understand that concept. She worked very hard to get to 100%, and if she couldn't get there, she was very frustrated as to why. Especially when the feedback was just, you can always do better. That is not helpful. That is exactly the same as setting a resolution with absolutely no constructive way to reach your end goal. So, first things first. What are goals? This may sound so incredibly silly to discuss because obviously we know what goals are. Surely, we hear about them all the time. Just like we know what a New Year's resolution is, we understand the concept and the idea behind it, but have you ever actually stopped and had a think about what is a goal? Because it's your goals that are going to make your resolutions come to life, and your goals are the way that you're going to get there. It is your journey. So the way that I like to think about a goal, essentially it's a task. It is the end result or part of the process to achieving an overall bigger picture. Even if you have an end goal, which myself and a lot of my business friends that are in small business, we talk about end goals a lot. But bear in mind that for us, an end goal still isn't the end, because we're going to get to our end goal and then be looking forward to the future for where to go from there. So for me, in my mind, a goal is just a forever moving target that we're trying to achieve. It is a result for actions that we have been taking to get to a certain position. Why are goals so important? Goals are so important because this is what sets our benchmark. This is what allows us to be able to start to track our journey, track our progress, send us in the right direction. And this is where I think most people struggle with achieving a resolution, because when we are discussing a resolution, we are talking about something absolute and whole. For example, my resolution since I was a teenager has always been to lose weight. It is many people's goals, or resolution, I should say. It is just a resolution at this point in time. It is a thought that we've had, that it's something that we want to do. I have failed this resolution so many times, and even when I felt like I have actually achieved this, the goalposts still move, because this is one of those particular resolutions that doesn't ever stop. You don't ever just get down to your goal weight and that's it, you're good, fantastic, you can just stop everything. No, again, you've reached your end goal, but there's still work to be done after that. So that's why I was also saying end goals are never the end. It's just the end of the path that you've gotten to, and now you may need to go in a new direction, or you may need to do a maintenance phase. So if you can start to visualize that a resolution is an end goal, and in order to get to an end goal, we need to actually make up smaller steps in order to get there, because none of us, not a single person is going to be able to go from the concept to the result without anything in between. It's just never going to happen. And this is where the New Year's resolutions fail, because unless you actually truly sit down with this resolution, truly think about how you're going to go about achieving this resolution, and until you actually determine goals and ways to achieve it, you just won't. It literally never happens. So why set goals, as in plural? Because that sounds difficult, right? Resolution is just one thing. This is true. This is very true. However, resolutions, because they tend to be rather large, grandiose things, I find that they tend to be made up of a lot of smaller aspects, or should be focusing on a lot of smaller aspects to help you get to that point that you would like to go. The weight loss one for itself, it's not just about exercise. You always hear it's also about diet. You will also hear that it's also about mindset. It is about education and retraining. It is about habit forming. That's already about half a dozen little things that sounds little that are actually huge factors in determining this particular success. Are you going to be able to do all of these things all at once? No, probably not. And if you do try, you'll become overwhelmed and you'll end up splitting your attention multiple different ways and not actually achieving anything, or if you do achieve something, it's not to the standard that it should be. This is why goal setting and truly understanding the nature of a goal is so important. Now, this particular topic I have covered for the past at least 20 years in my role as a trainer and assessor. As a Virgo, goal setting is a huge thing that I just love to do for myself. In all seriousness, anyone that's a Virgo or lives with a Virgo will know that is because I set myself a lot of goals, and that is bad. It is actually really bad. So this is where my passion for this topic comes from. Working with small businesses being a small business, teaching small business, and just being a person that is very goal oriented anyway, I absolutely thrive in this space and I love learning about this space. So what I would like to share with you is a concept that's been around for a very, very long time. And when I say long, I mean I have been teaching this for at least 20 years, which means it's been around for at least a lot longer than that. I have not researched the origins of where this has come from. Please feel free to do that if you would like to. And if you do know where the SMART goal system comes from or how it came about, feel free to drop that in the comments below for myself and everybody else. But for me, the origins of where this came from is not the end result or the key topic for this particular video. What I would like to do for you is to, in a very quick way, explain how the SMART goal system works. You have most likely heard of it before, and it's probably something that you're very aware about, especially if you are in particular roles where you do a lot of project management, if you're in management, if you're in a team that has to meet certain deadlines, if you do administration and you have actual very tight deadlines to get to in terms of getting your paperwork in. There are compliance-based industries where time and accuracy and completion is incredibly important. The great thing is that this also just translates into everyday life, or well, it should. It's something that I'm not so sure we really relay to our youth in a way that they can grab onto. And if we don't actually utilize this structure in our day-to-day life and we're not aware about it and we lose this skill, we are literally being very detrimental to a person's overall success in every aspect of their life. So I hope that you will find something useful out of this particular strategy, and I am dying to hear what your goals are for this year and what your resolutions are if you have any, and I would love for us to do check-ins throughout the year as well. So for those of you familiar with the SMART model, you will understand what I mean by let's do check-ins. So let me, before I get too far off topic, just wind this back a little bit and go to the start of the SMART goals. SMART goals are literally SMART, and it is a structure on how to actually set your goals, things to look for, how to actually flesh out your goals in order to get to the end of the goal. It's 5 key things that are so critically important to this process. So if you're new to this, bear with me. Knowledge is one of those things where I find that you have to either watch it or listen to it or do it multiple times in order for it to actually sink in. So please feel free to just come back to this. This is your baseline. I'm going to try and make it as simple as possible so that you can actually just use the bare bones of this model and take that and run with it. So the S in SMART is for specific. Specific means to actually clearly define your goals. So when we go back to our resolutions and working out what is the difference between a resolution and a goal, I'm not going to be able to say this, it's a tongue twister. The specifics, the specific nature of your goal is how you actually achieve your resolution and the best way to start with your goal making process. So I'm going to go back to my goal of losing weight, because this is just an ongoing thing that I have always done. When I first started resolutions when I was younger, and we hadn't really done much goal setting because, 12, just watching 90s pop culture. And back in those days, which is sad to say that it's coming back again, thanks TikTok, the skinny, the 90s and the 2000s skinny is coming back. So growing up in that particular decade where it wasn't focused on health, the most health that we had here in Australia was Healthy Harold, and we were given ways in which we could be healthier, but weight loss wasn't, it was sort of frowned upon. Most people were just skinny, or they didn't eat to be skinny. I do not endorse any of this, by the way, 100%, and I do apologize if there's anybody watching that this is an uncomfortable topic for you. I am just picking it because it is a huge part of my life and my journey and what I've been through. And honestly, this is probably one of the first areas where I really learned how to meet a New Year's resolution after having failed this resolution so many times. So for me, when I'm starting with the specifics of a goal, I need to work out what it is. To say that I want to lose weight, what does that even mean? How much weight? When? Why? So the key beginning of this, I would say for myself, is how much weight do I want to lose? Because if I can work out how much weight I want to lose, I can then set out the rest of the SMART model to work out how to actually get to that goal. If I do not know how much weight I want to lose, I don't know how to approach this. For example, part of this, and it's going to be an ongoing thing throughout my podcast, especially this year, I have learned so much about my body and my health and how everything works, and that took me a really long time to get there, and I'm still learning every single day. I love it, I'm passionate about it, but this was not where I started. I started from a place of shame, and basically I went about losing weight in the not so healthy ways. Restricting food, trying to just drink liquids, drinking a lot of water with gum to try and suppress hunger, and going to the gym and essentially punishing myself. I was there because I had to be, not necessarily because I wanted to be. So when I was losing weight, and particularly now that I have a better understanding of my body and how it works and weight loss goals in general, when I was younger, the goal was just to be skinny. That was it. That was the goalpost. That was the specifics. And because that was a substantial amount of weight, that meant that my goals were huge. In order to shift, at that point, 50 kilos, I just popped it into a basket that said, yep, I'm gonna be skinny by the end of next year. And the way I'd go about it was exactly how I said, which was not sustainable and not healthy and not great for my body. And I actually ended up doing a lot more damage than I did good. So although I was proactively working towards this goal, and although it was kind of specific, it was not specific enough. So I learned that I had to break it down even more. Part of breaking this goal down even more moves into the M part of the SMART goal, which is measurable. So to get to a 50 kilo weight loss, as I said, the two key things were diet and exercise, of course. So to make this goal measurable, I could do things such as be specific around how many calories I wanted to eat in a day. Let's just go with the typical 1200. Having this as a metric and being very specific meant that every single day it gave me a goal to work towards. So this is a goal within a goal that's stuck within another goal that will ultimately get me to my resolution. And this is why goals are so important, because you should have a lot of them. This is how we get to our success. In order to get to that ultimate and dream goal, it's a lot of little goals. And believe me, this is what sets you up for success as well, because we are going to fail at some, if not a lot, of these goals as we go along. However, it gives us a much better idea of how to change or pivot. And it's also so exciting when we do actually achieve some of these goals. We're actually moving in the right direction. And that's because we've made it specific and measurable. So part of being specific too, that's the diet side of things. I know I've also got to do the exercise side of things. So in order to make it measurable, I needed to give myself a number of exercise days that I wanted to do throughout the week. With this, let's just say I aimed to work out 5 times a week. That allowed me to make that measurable and helped me make it a bit more specific as well. Because if I had 5 workouts to do, when I started in particular, I was in high school and I also had an after school and weekend job. So for me, I really needed to work out where I wanted to exercise, because I had set myself up a little home gym, but I also had a gym membership. So knowing that I had 5 workouts a week to exercise to, I could then also pick specifically, were they going to be at home? Were they going to be work? Or were they going to be a combination of gym, home, work? The reason I'm throwing work into this was because being a teenager, I worked at Subway and would work 8-hour shifts, if not longer, on the weekend. So of course, needed to take that into account as well. I needed enough energy to be able to do the physical side of my job, which was a lot of lifting, cleaning, walking, serving, standing. This then segues really nicely into our A, which is achievable. This is the part of the process that I actually really love, because this is the part that allows you to celebrate your success over and over and over again. Because this is the part where we actually go back and have a look at the work that we've put in, the goals that we've already set for ourselves, and just how far into the progress of this we really are. So going back to my goals of, let's do the gym workouts, or the workout side of things, I should say. To make this achievable and to make sure that I could get these 5 workouts in, I needed to have a goal for myself for that. So again, we're layering the goals. We're doing goals inside of goals inside of goals. This is super important though. I know if you've never done this process before, or even if you're here as a refresher on doing this, this is the point where I think the true weight of a resolution starts to really kick in. This is because this is where you realize just how much work is actually involved in it. When you break things down into smaller, more achievable steps, you really do truly realize, oh my goodness, so much work needs to be done. When we're looking at an achievable goal, what we are trying to do is break it down even further so that it's not just measurable. We want to make sure that we are actually making a goal for ourselves that we can actually achieve. Obviously, that's why it's called achievable. But what I mean by this is, most people think that a goal itself is always achievable. Yes and no. Yes and no. Because it's the same reason that just having a resolution is not enough. Making something achievable means that you are actually taking that thought process another step further, and you are working out a way that this goal or these sets of goals fit into your life and what you are working on at the moment and what you are dealing with now. This is perhaps the most important part of your goal setting process. If you set yourself goals time and time time again that you cannot physically reach, or you know it's going to burn you out to get there, this is where the failure points truly are. What I mean by this is you need to be serious about your energy levels, your work situation, your family situation, your income or financial factors that will impact your goal, as well as time. Do you have the time to do the part that you've allocated to yourself? Or do you need to break it down even further? I love breaking down goals into much smaller goals, because I don't know if you've ever seen the inspirational posters that show a person that's at the top of a mountain and shows that it's a huge mountain. You know, they're up here and they started off down here. If it was just the image of the mountain itself and them just being up here and you didn't even see them really start down here, that in itself is daunting, because that is a massive hill to get up. What you should also be seeing in these hypothetical photos and these memes and images and motivational things that do go around on this mountain, you should see the path that was taken, and it should have very clearly defined points. Most will show a staircase, and I think that's probably because it's not a mountain that is used as the overall picture. But I'm going to use a mountain because to get to a goal, it's very rarely nice little tiny steps upwards that are nice and even, and it's a pleasant, slow trip upwards. No, it is a mountain. It's rugged. It is great in some parts. It is difficult in some parts. Sometimes you hate it. Sometimes you look out at the view and you're halfway and go, oh wow, it looks really pretty from here. Can't wait to get to the top. And then you find that it's a really steep summit, and sometimes you slip back down. You've got to climb back up again. Maybe you should have brought your mountaineering gear with you. Maybe you've learnt a few strategies on how to make this process of mountain climbing easier. And maybe at some point you will actually really love mountain climbing. That's never going to be for me, but I do like this hypothetical, because if you can understand as well that even though something has been broken down to be more achievable, that doesn't necessarily mean it makes your pathway any easier or any clearer. All it does for you is when you are standing at the bottom of that mountain and you are looking all the way to the summit and you can't even see the top, it takes away the overwhelming nature of this goal. Because when you are at the bottom looking up, that is demotivating, because you will look at that task and you will look at that mountain and you will just think, I don't even think it's worth it, which is usually what happens with people's resolutions. They look at the resolution, they really want to get to the top, but if that's all you're looking at, you're never going to get there. Even if you make it measurable, even if you say, I'm going to get to the top of this mountain by the end of 2026, when I get to New Year's Eve on 2026, my New Year's resolution for 2027 is going to be something completely different, because I'll be up at the top waving. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. And that's usually because the motivation to get to that point just can't beat the work that needs to go into this. Where the achievable part comes in handy at this point, because there's no two ways about it, the amount of work to get to that goal is never going to change, regardless of the scenario that you put it into. What it does for you is sets you up with the tools and the resilience to actually get there. So if you are standing at the bottom of the mountain and you just say to yourself, you know what? Today, all I want to do is get a couple of meters up off the ground. I just don't want my feet to be on the bottom of that mountain. By the end of today, I just want to be anywhere off the bottom. Anywhere. I'll be happy. Even if it's only a few feet, I don't care. That then makes something that you've made measurable, achievable, and you can actually tick that off. Are you at the end of your goal? No. Are you anywhere near the end of your goal? Also no. Do you need to make a lot more goals from here to get to there? Yeah, there's a lot of work. But when you're looking at the amount of work already that you've done, even if it is 1% of the work, you're already not at needing to do 100% of the task. You've already dipped your toe in. You're already there. You also get faster and better at achieving these goals the more that you do them. So even though these first few goals or first few steps didn't get you all that far, and it took you ages to get there, and you're exhausted, you will start to develop your processes. You will streamline, you will get fitter and better, and you will start to get more motivated, so you will move quickly. This is what we mean by achievable. So for me, an achievable way to lose weight was to take into consideration, especially as an adult, way less energy levels, working full-time Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, usually had to be at work at 8:30, usually wouldn't leave until 5:30, took half an hour to get into town and then back out, had to go and find the car park and walk across to work. This is already a full day, and this already exhausts a lot of people. For me to make those workouts achievable, I had to pick my days. It did not matter the amount of times I tried to get up on a Monday. Monday just was one of my worst days. And for some reason, Wednesdays. Hated Wednesdays. And even though, hypothetically, based on all the information going around, Monday and Wednesday should have been the day that I pushed myself to do these things, which I did, and I had planned to do them on those days, I consistently failed at this point. I did not want to get up on a Monday, and I did not feel like being the world's most perky, excited, athletic person on a Wednesday. Come Wednesday night, yes. Wednesday morning, absolutely not. This is where having measurable goals meant that I could change the goalpost so that it did become achievable. Because if I just left it at that and went, oh, no, I'm hopeless at this. There's no point. I just keep failing. This is stupid. I'll just give up. I would once again not be at my resolution ever. This gives me the chance to reevaluate what I am doing and make something work for me. This is my goal. I can get to it however I need to. That was not working for me. So what I ended up doing was picking days that I knew I had more energy stores, both physically and mentally. So, for example, Friday mornings were one of my favorite mornings to exercise. So was a Tuesday morning. I found that it was easy to exercise on a Thursday, but I did have to push myself to get to that particular workout. And then weekends I just loved, because I could actually do things such as bushwalk with my doggos, which was fun. So changing the goalpost, changing the type of exercise that I did, and giving myself measurable ways to achieve this, and flexibility to work within the parameters I was setting for myself, meant that, once again, this goal became even more specific. So now I knew, even if the only thing I knew was that I was not exercising on a Monday and I was not exercising on a Wednesday, it didn't necessarily matter what combination of gym or home workouts I was doing. It was just the fact that I was achieving those 5 workouts. Once I started to consistently do those 5 workouts a week, and I could happily say, yep, I'm getting to that, I could then go back and make them even more specific from there, which was, okay, well, let's increase the time that I'm at the gym. Or maybe I pulled the reins, kept into a good habit forming basis for exercise. I then looked at the side that I was neglecting a little bit, which was the diet. So now I had one thing sorted. Now I could move my attention over to this other particular area. this is where achievable goals really do help, because you do want to just set yourself a tiny little spot to get to. And once you get there, you can then just get to the next spot and the next spot. This is how goals become super specific. This is how you set your very solid habits around these particular goals so that you're constantly working towards them. And this is how you reduce the failure risk, because you are now looking at your overall resolution in pretty minute detail, really, because you can keep breaking these goals down and keep making them smaller and more specific and more refined and easier to measure. This is how you get to the top, because you are just constantly plodding forward. It is literally just one foot in front of the other, one foot in front of the other. And just like any other walk, you may trip, you may stumble, you may need to stop and take a break, you may need to find a different path from where you're currently walking, but you're still heading towards your overall end goal. And it just starts to get addictive when you actually see that you're making leaps and bounds, really, in the grand scheme of things. This then brings us to the R. Now, R can sometimes stand for a couple of different things, but I really like when it's relevant goals. Now, what do we mean by relevant goals? Well, if you're a person like me that has just so many goals, too many hobbies, too many things, too many, I really struggle to hone in on what is actually relevant. Because at the end of the day, if I were to focus on all of the noise surrounding all of the things that I think I want to do, I would never get to the end of any project, because I would just be too busy with my foot in multiple doorways. So I want to take my feet out of every possible doorway in this massive hallway, and I really just want to focus on one or two doors. And once I have worked out which doorways are the best way to get there, which again is going all the way back to your specifics of your goals, ensuring that they're relevant is a huge way to make them achievable. So, staying on the weight loss train, to make a goal relevant for something that is achievable, it's, again, coming back to where you actually are in your life and what you are working on at the moment and what your overall goal is. So, for this year, my goal is not actually to lose weight per se. It is always an ongoing goal. However, I have spent quite a lot of years with really bad health. So for me, something that is far more relevant for me this year is to increase my wellness. I really want to focus on bringing my body back to a place where it can be as strong as it can be. That is the single most relevant thing that I would like to do for myself. Is that my end goal or my resolution for the end of the year? No. But this is my starting point. This is my why. And the why is so important, because on the days when things are really hard, or if you have gone through a really, really difficult patch with your goal setting and you just feel like you're getting nowhere, things are getting thrown at you left, right, and center, things are fully off course, you're halfway up the mountain and a hurricane has come through and it's also bringing snow and there's the volcano at the top and everything just feels completely pointless, and you feel like you have worked so hard to get to this point, but it all just feels a bit hopeless. The relevancy of your goals that you are currently working on and your why is what's going to actually keep getting you through these really difficult patches. And this is, again, where critical failure takes place for people in their goal setting session. The reason that if you're going to fail when you've put in this much work, that this is the point that you would do it, is because when things get very difficult, which they always will, you really need to dig deep, because sometimes it just seems better to not continue. So if you really want to get to that end goal in these really difficult moments, being able to look inwards, to remind yourself of the exciting things that you are going to do once you get to the end of your goal, or the significance and the importance of it, this will get you out of any rough patch, no matter how long it takes. So make sure it is relevant for what you are working on now. If you are working on immediate goals, and these are things that can make immediate changes to your life in significantly good ways, again, this is going to set you up for success. I don't know why I said it success, but I know I talk a lot about failure. We are literally at the whole point of the process where the failures will happen. But this is the point where the successes truly, truly start. And once you have gone through a really difficult patch with a goal that you are working towards, if you've got your relevancy and the achievability, the measurability, and the specificity of it sorted, you are going to be immovable. Even if it means you might have to bunker down for a little bit and ride out the storm, you know why you're doing that. You know why it's worth it. And you know that even though the path ahead is going to be even more difficult now because this storm has just ruined things for you, you know why you really want to get yourself to the other end. If you do not have this for yourself, it's going to be very, very, very difficult to talk yourself into taking the action needed to get yourself there. This now brings us to the T in the SMART goals, which is time bound. Also, very important for goal setting, but possibly not in the way that you would think. So, as the ongoing example of New Year's resolutions, most people will give themselves a time frame of 1 year to get through their goals. For some things, this is plenty of time. In fact, it's probably too much time. For a lot of other goals, it's not going to be enough. It's going to be a substantial amount of time to achieve something quite significant, but it's generally not enough to maintain the momentum of what these resolutions are, particularly because they tend to be very big resolutions. If they were easy to achieve, you would have done it already. So having time restraints does help, but I don't necessarily want you to focus on that. The only time a time-bound restraint on a parameter of a goal is important is if there is actually a deadline. The particular one that I'm using of weight loss, again, time bound for this, I used to set that time parameter and it was always that year. And it did take me a very, very, very long time to realize that actually this is going to be a lifelong thing and it never comes up as a resolution anymore, ever. I don't want to wait. Like, if this is my goal for this year and I failed it tomorrow, I don't want to wait until next year to get on top of this. I just want to do it now. But most people do make these resolutions something massive, even if it's something fun like a holiday and going overseas. Again, that doesn't organize itself. Does that mean, though, that if you did not achieve your goal in the time frame you set yourself, does that mean that you should just give up on it altogether because, again, you've missed a huge goalpost? Does it mean that you should set the same goal or resolution again for yourself? Yes and no. Again, it is very specific, but this one is really the one that probably has the most flexibility. And the reason that I say that is because unless you are meeting a specific legislative requirement with your business or your goal, or there is a reason that you need to meet a specific date or a specific timeline, for the most part, every other timeline can be changed. And this is where we go back to, again, the measurability and the achievability of your goals. So with my weight loss for this year, I'm not setting a target or a goal. Like I said, it's going to be purely focused around building up my strength and focusing on my wellness. Do I want to give myself a whole year to work towards this? Of course, this is something I'm going to be working on for my whole lifetime, obviously. But I want to make it more measurable than that. So this is where I'll break it down to make it more achievable and do a smaller overarching goal. I'll make it a lot more specific, and I'll make it a lot more relevant. So one of my very first goals already for this year, which I actually did start before New Year's, because I really do truly believe that you should just start these things when you want to. One of my goals was just to drink more water. I drink a lot of water throughout the day, but one of my health issues caused severe and chronic nausea. So for a really long time there, it was actually quite difficult to drink just straight water, which I really, really just love. I usually always have my drink bottle with me. So I ended up having to drink a lot of no sugar lemonade. And then for those of you that are soft drink drinkers, you know just how addictive that carbonation and that artificial taste can be. So it can be very hard to transition back into drinking your water, which is what I found. So one of the things that I changed for myself last year was to just drink more SodaStream. Drinking 2 to 3 liters of water a day, but it was carbonated. But at least I was doing it at home. I knew what was in it. I could control that, and I knew I was drinking my water. Then I started to set myself a goal of just drinking plain water, even if it was just a glass. Little teeny tiny goals that I was working towards. This year, it's more measurable and more specific because I know that this is something I can do very easily. It's finally starting to get hot here in Victoria. So I'm finally wanting to just have that nice, pure, clean, fresh, cold water. So now it's just about drinking at least one of these a day just with water. And I've already done that, but I know I can take it another step further. Another way that I can make this more relevant and more time-bound and more achievable is I started researching things that you could put into water that wasn't cordial, but also wasn't hydrolytes or electrolytes. So, for example, I came across that brand Water Drop, which I thought this is a really cool idea. It's essentially the same concept as adding cordial to your water to give it some flavor, but rather than be along the more artificial lines of cordial, this is actually more in the health and wellness space, having good minerals and other great things for your body. That, for me, made it relevant, achievable, measurable, and specific. And the way that I make it time-bound and, again, more measurable, I gave myself a week to get those water drops, either pay a bit more of a premium to get them out of Woolworths so I could just see if I liked them, or I could have got them during the Black Friday sales or the end of year sales so that I could capitalize on those discounts so that I could try the range. So I ended up getting it from Woolworths. Actually had seen them everywhere until I was looking for them. And again, I could have failed at this point. I nearly did fail at this point because I couldn't find them anywhere. And I really didn't want to order them online. I had decided I really would have rather get them from the shops because I didn't want to end up with a product that I may end up wasting. But when I couldn't find them in the shops, I said to myself, if I do not find them by the end of the week, at this point it was a Wednesday and the end of my week was Saturday, that was my goal. If I hadn't found them, by Saturday, I was going to jump online and make an order. And wouldn't you know, on Friday, we found them. So this is an example of a very minute goal. This is one of those things where you're probably going to think, oh, well, geez, how exciting. Actually, it was. It really was, because it is a minute little detail towards the end of my grand plan. And already it was posing a massive problem for me to try and locate these. Could have easily just gone, oh, well, yeah, no, don't worry about it. I'll do it next year. It's fine. But this is another example of something so little that is actually quite easy to fix and quite easy to get around. And this in itself is a very small goal. But in terms of the health benefits and the things that I want to focus on, this is a fantastic starting point, because this then opens up so many other doors from here based on how I do with this. So I know I said I was going to keep it simple, which brings us back to another one that you've probably heard of, which is the KISS method, which is the keep it simple, silly. Doing the SMART goals, although it is a simple concept, and I encourage you to keep your goals very simple, just be mindful that the SMART model is designed to get you thinking. And the more you start thinking, the more ideas you should have, and the bigger the scope of your works seems to get. Because truly, it is making hundreds, maybe not hundreds, let's go dozens, a dozen, less than a dozen, whatever's not going to scare you off. Making those smaller little goals so that you can celebrate your wins when you get to them. It also, even that water drop scenario, it's such a minute thing that was just so easy to fix, and I can get to it straight away, so I can keep going. I've already started working on the next part of the process, which is, getting back in and doing gym workouts to build up my muscle strength again after losing a lot of muscle tone from illness. Making them this minute means that when it gets difficult, it's a small problem that you're dealing with. It's going to be a really easy fix. Whereas when we were talking about, the storm, for example, on the mountain, if that storm hits when you are at the bottom of the mountain, we all know chances are you're not even going to step on the mountain. Your foot's not even going to touch it. So if we can get ourselves moving, progressing, achieving little things where, you can look back and go, oh, wow, I've come a long way already, even though there's still a long way to go. This is the best way to set you up for success. Keep your minor goals simple. Make sure you are constantly working towards them. Use this SMART model and write it down. Write them down. So this is where I will come to the sort of conclusion of this. Hopefully it's given you enough of an idea of how to move forward. But I want to talk about how to stay motivated, because a lot of people do this in a lot of different ways. And again, it is going to depend on what kind of goal you have. So if you have a personal goal, ways that you can stay focused and motivated is to do things like vision boards, or have a diary, or have a whiteboard. One of the things that I used to do, especially when I started to get into the process and started to see a lot of weight loss success, I actually bought a mannequin that I thought was very pretty. It was in Aldi. It's a Paris style bust. I put a goal dress on there. Is that goal dress a size 6? No, it probably would have been 15 years ago, but it's not now. It is literally just one of my dresses that I used to be able to fit into at a time that I felt great during my weight loss journey, and I want to get that feeling back again. It's a size, I think it's a City Chic one, so size 18 or something. Beautiful dress. I feel gorgeous in it. I would always wear it on date nights with my husband, or when I'd go to the theatre or anything. It was just one of those things that just made me feel so good and I loved it. And at one point it felt like I would never get back into that dress. And I actually did get back into that dress way quicker than even setting any of these goals. But that's an example of an achievable thing that just, I knew what I wanted and why I wanted to get to that goal. So all the hard work, all the days full of pain and fatigue and unwellness, that was my goal. And it was something pretty to look at. It was nice in my room. I loved it. For me, it was a lovely visual reference. People have their specific ways that they like to go about doing these things. What I would encourage you to do is to find the motivator that comes from a place of love and happiness rather than from detriment. So if I had to put a size 6 dress up, I don't know if I would ever achieve that goal. Now that I'm into the part of my journey that I'm into, I'm not even sure if I want to achieve that goal. I don't think it'll ever cross my mind ever again. But most importantly, if that's what I was looking at this year and that was the goal that I set myself for the end of this year, well, we all know that's not happening. And if it does happen, it's going to have to be through something extreme. And I don't want to do that. My goals are health and wellness related. Therefore, I'm going to go about achieving these goals in a healthy, sustainable way that becomes a lifelong habit. This is what I highly encourage you to do, because most people's resolutions, as I said, are very big things that are usually very personal. Even if it is something like a holiday, have a photo of yourself when you were last on a holiday so that you can remember how that felt, and maybe have a printout on your fridge or your calendar or wherever it is that you need to see this and to be reminded of it, the place that you want to go. And then more importantly than that, start putting that into action. Looking at that I may edit this out, probably not. Looking at that photo itself is not going to be enough to actually get you to that destination. It is just the visual reminder when you're having a bad day or when you're having a good day that this is what you're working towards. This is your why, and here's how we're going to do it. So to wrap this up, I also just want to point out that for a lot of people, you may find that your goals and your resolutions are so big and grand that you may come across a lot of people that don't support you or don't believe in you. This is where your why is absolutely critically important. Do this for yourself, no one else. That helps you block out that noise. The other thing that I would highly encourage you to do is to try and put yourself in places and spaces with people that want to work towards the same sort of thing as you, have the same kind of goals or mentality, or other types of people that are supportive enough. Even if, for example, let's just say your goal is not weight loss, let's just say your goal is business related. Just because your goal is business related and mine is health related, this doesn't mean that a friendship or a network is incompatible. In fact, it's great because we are approaching two different goals from two completely different methods and places and circumstances. But if we're using the SMART model and the KISS model, we have a lot that we can talk about. And actually, networking with other people that do this can sometimes help you out of those difficult spaces by giving you a place to come from where a different perspective might actually open up a whole new path for you. Also, going back to what if I fail? The best thing about failure is that you're trying. As a perfectionist, I really struggle with failure. I really don't like it. I'd never, ever, ever set out to not succeed. But it is the reality of life, and I'm starting to realize more and more as I get older that actually I should be aiming to fail. And I know that sounds weird, but what I mean by that is I should have goals and dreams and visions that are so out there, so left of center for what I know, so completely out of my comfort zone and my depth that it's inevitable that I'm going to fail because I'm stepping into spaces I've never been before. Doing that with the SMART goal approach and making sure that I am not looking at the whole picture, I'm just taking little bites out of the process, this means that, yeah, I'm probably going to fail. But again, it's going to be on a much smaller scale. It's going to be much easier to fix. I'm going to know about it a lot quicker, and I'm going to get it out of the way much, much, much quicker than if I was reviewing these at a later date. So don't be afraid to fail. If you fail, all it means is you've determined that that's not the right course of action. And that in itself is I don't know why I keep saying success today. That in itself is a success. If you have failed at something, it simply means you have ruled out a path. Maybe you've ruled it out in a spectacular fashion. You can go back and laugh at this one day. All it means is that particular place is blocked. You now know you need to move forward in a different direction. Just pick yourself back up. You can do this. Finally, I would also just like to say that with your goals, sorry, brain checked out of the building for a second there. You should be reviewing these regularly, and you should do check-ins. If you're only comfortable doing a check-in with yourself, that's totally fine. I would recommend that you sit with a notebook, have your goals listed, put them down in that SMART method strategy, fully write it out, fully visualize it, know how you're going to get there, work out when you're going to actually do your check-ins. For me, I like to do just accountability check-ins every week, especially on, again, the weight loss thing. I do tend to go by weeks to see how I've gone. That then means I will then have another proper check-in at the end of the month to see overall how I was doing for that month, to see if there's anything that I can improve on going into the next month, to see if there's any patterns that have emerged, and again, just possibly tweak some of my goals moving forward into the next round. Then there's the 3 quarterly, because most significant changes in weight loss or fitness or habit forming will happen at around a 3-month point in time, which again, you then have a lot more data to go back and look at, and a lot more that you can change, review, move, tweak, all the things. And then I keep doing this regularly, forever checking in on these goals. You should never not have them in your mind. It doesn't mean that you should obsess over them and make it your whole world and your whole existence. I just mean it should never be too far from your thoughts. You should be wanting to check in to, I love crossing something off my list. Even if another 2 or 3 things pop up, as long as I can cross at least one thing off my list, I feel great that I've made progress. If I can't cross anything off my list, it means I need to go and tweak these goals and make them even more achievable, even more relevant. I need to do something to get them moving and off my books. So check in regularly, check in with other people if you've got people that you trust. Highly advise you do not speak to people that you know are going to bring you down, because at the end of the day, it's hard enough to work towards these transformative resolutions as it is. Take out anything that makes that job harder for you. The last thing that I want to say is that even though I've used a weight loss and health and wellness goal, my videos going forward are going to be a mixture of health and wellness and my journey and whatnot, but a key focus on business. So please just know that even though this is a weight loss goal, the irony is that this is actually a business technique to achieving this goal. This is what I would usually teach in my business classes. So the SMART and the KISS methods of achieving goals and resolutions go across any goal that you may have. So please just know that this video hopefully gives you some guidance in many areas of your life, and I really look forward to networking with all of you guys that are currently working towards this. And this is something that I would love to do as a check-in with you guys, maybe every 3 months, to see how you're going. All right, guys, happy 2026, happy goal planning. I really hope that you drop me a comment with what your resolution is for this year, and I'm highly excited to revisit this at the end of next year and see how we're looking for 2027. Good luck, guys. I will see you in the next one. Bye.